Good morning and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. This week we've been looking at what I'm calling high points, the significant place that mountains have in the Gospel of Matthew, or maybe a better way to say it might be things that happened on mountains in Matthew. When I went to Israel almost 20 years ago, one of the more significant moments was the time we spent on the Mount of Olives. I don't know why I had never realized this before, but the reason it was called the Mount of Olives was because that there were groves of olive trees on the mountain. It was an important source of oil for cooking and for creating balms to soothe injuries. It stands just to the east of across the Kidron Valley from Jerusalem. And this mountain holds significant place in the final week of Jesus. Jesus was on this mountain a lot in that final week before his crucifixion. For much of the week, he seemed to be staying at the home of Mary and Martha and Lazarus in Bethany, about 2 miles outside of Jerusalem. Each day he would travel into the city, and to do so, he would have had to go over the Mount of Olives. But the chief significance is found on Thursday night. In Matthew 26, 36 through 46, we read, "Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, 'Sit here while I go over there and pray.' He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, 'I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me.' And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, 'My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want.' Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, 'Could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.' Again he went away for the second time and prayed, 'My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done.' Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, 'Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand.'" After celebrating the Passover with his disciples and instituting the Holy Communion meal, Jesus took them with him over to the Mount of Olives and to a garden of olive trees there. The place was called Gethsemane, and there he prayed not to have to go through what was before him, but what he wanted most was for God's will to be done. And it was indeed God's will that the salvation of the world should happen. And so the very next scene after our verses tell of Judas and those who came to arrest Jesus. At the foot of this mountain today is a chapel called the Church of All Nations. Inside the altar is a piece of bedrock that tradition says Jesus knelt against in prayer. When I was there, I got to spend some time in a real olive grove on that mountain. And then when we were in the actual Garden of Gethsemane, we were able to see 2 trees that were more than 2,000 years old. And so we're likely there when Jesus prayed in that garden. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.